This presentation will cover the third and final part of Chapter 12, the spinal cord and spinal nerves. In this presentation, we'll be investigating the connective tissue associated with spinal nerves, the organization of spinal nerves, dermatomes, and rami and plexuses. Let's begin by learning about the connective tissue components of spinal nerves. The connective tissues affiliated with spinal nerves are arranged similarly to those we studied in skeletal muscles. Single axons, both myelinated and unmyelinated, are covered in a connective tissue called the endoneurium. Axons are grouped into fascicles. Perineurium is the connective tissue covering a fascicle. An entire spinal nerve is covered by a connective tissue called the epineurium. Let's now investigate how spinal nerves are organized. 31 pairs of spinal nerves come off the spinal cord. They function to connect the CNS to sensory receptors, muscles, and glands. Spinal nerves are part of the peripheral nervous system, and all of them are mixed nerves, meaning that they contain both sensory and motor neurons. The first pair of spinal nerves exit the vertebral column between the skull and the atlas. The last 4 pairs exit via the sacral foramina. The other pairs of spinal nerves exit through the intervertebral foramina. There are 8 pairs of cervical spinal nerves, and their names are C1 through C8. 12 pairs of thoracic spinal nerves are named T1 through T12. 5 pairs of lumbar spinal nerves are named L1 through L5. 5 pairs of sacral spinal nerves are named S1 through S5, and the 1 pair of coccygeal spinal nerves are named C(o)(1). Now let's learn about dermatomes. A dermatome is an area of skin supplied with sensory innervation by a pair of spinal nerves. A dermatome map, like the one pictured here, shows the spinal nerves supplying the different areas. Notice that C1 is the only spinal nerve without a dermatome. Also, there is overlap between the spinal nerves serving an area. Dermatomes are used clinically in pain management and to determine the location of spinal cord injuries based on where loss of sensation is being experienced. Our final topic is rami and plexuses. A ramus is a major branch of a spinal nerve. Each spinal nerve has a dorsal and ventral ramus. Dorsal or posterior rami innervate the deep muscles of the trunk responsible for the movements of the vertebral column and the connective tissue and skin near the midline of the back. Ventral or anterior rami function differently depending on where they are located. Ventral rami of the thoracic region form intercostal nerves that innervate the intercostal muscles in the skin of the thorax. In all other regions, the ventral rami form plexuses. Plexuses are a network of nerves supplying an area. Plexuses arise from all ventral rami except for T2 through T12. They are beneficial because if a nerve is damaged, the area is still innervated and no functional losses will occur. There are 5 major plexuses that form from the ventral rami of spinal nerves. They are the cervical, brachial, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal plexuses. This slide shows some of these plexuses. What have you learned about spinal nerves? Pause and write down all that you can remember. In this presentation, we learned about the connective tissue of spinal nerves, the organization of spinal nerves, dermatomes, rami, and plexuses.